domestic security is enormous at this point. He is the head boss of departments like the TSA, or Transportation Security Administration, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, U.S. Immigration, U.S. Secret Service, FEMA, and the corresponding detention camps ran by FEMA, U.S. Coast Guard, Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers, Domestic Nuclear Detection Office, National Cyber Security Center, to name a few. Chertoff has direct access to the Department of Justice and the FBI because he has many Jewish cohorts in strategic positions throughout these departments. It has been a guarded secret for quite some time that Michael Chertoff was the author of the Patriot Act, a bill edited by Viet Din that effectively nullifies the Constitution of the United States of America and the Bill of Rights. It was originally common knowledge that Ashcroft was the author of the so-called Patriot Act, but it was Chertoff who engineered this traitorous bill. It should also be noted that Chertoff has direct access to every single police and sheriff department in the country because since the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, they have appointed people in every police department to have a liaison for the DHS. This dual citizen of Israel, with obvious loyalties not to the United States, will be in direct control of events as they happen if martial law is ever declared on Americans. We must go forward in our timeline to the year 2007 to understand this next piece of telling but peculiar evidence. It is necessary to understand how the Jewish crime network continues to function undetected by the average person. Their operatives and Sionim informants and assistants must play all sides and every side to retain the illusion that they aren't working on the same side. They play friend and associate, entertainer, business partner, villain, and hero. If we examine the tragic events of the Virginia Tech shooting, we find Cho Seung-Hyu shooting two individuals at 7:15 a.m. This was reported to the authorities as gunfire and one person dead on the scene. 2 hours went by before Cho opened fire on several dozen persons at the campus's Norris Hall. Why didn't the school president warn the students and suspend classes? The school president is none other than Charles Steger, a Jew. Steger was silent for approximately 2 hours. This is reminiscent of the Audigo employees who received a warning about the 9/11 attacks, but apparently decided not to save non-Jewish lives by sharing that information with others. 2 students reported that they could have been able to put Cho down with their firearms, but recent restrictions to carrying guns to school passed by Steger disarmed them, allowing Cho to safely gun down students with neither a warning to them nor the ability of brave men to handle the situation with legally owned firearms. If you examine the gun control laws of the past 100 years, you will find members of the Jewish crime network putting such laws in place. It is a fact that restriction of firearms means a higher crime rate, but that is a subject for another video. All this eventually returns to the subject of 9/11 by way of Virginia Tech professor Liviu Librescu. At age 76 and approximately 145 pounds soaking wet, he was supposedly able to hold off Cho and reportedly then save the lives of several students. So our hero of the day, despite the obvious finger pointing at the Jewish crime network via school president Charles Steger, is none other than Jewish Librescu. So, who was one of the key heroes of the day on 9/11? Despite mounting evidence demonstrated herein that the attacks were orchestrated by Jews and their non-Jewish criminal cohorts, we find that the hero of Flight 93 is none other than Jeremy Glick, a Jew. Supposedly, Glick was the brave soul that motivated people on board Flight 93 to overtake the supposed hijackers and crash the plane into the ground in Pennsylvania to keep it from hitting its intended target. Of course, eyewitness reports, insiders, video, and photographic evidence seem to show that Flight 93 was shot down and didn't actually crash land. But like the gun control issue, that's another topic for another video. So, of the supposedly 3 Jews that died on 9/11, one miraculously turns out to be a hero of the day, along with the Jewish hero of Virginia Tech, of course. Quite a mathematical absurdity. The appointed federal judges Alvin K. Hellerstein and Michael B. Mukasey, and the former Assistant Attorney General Michael Chertoff, who now heads Homeland Security, have worked for almost 7 years to hide critical evidence and block discovery of important details concerning the orchestrators of the 9/11 attack. Immediately after the horrific events of 9/11, while the country was mourning, grieving, and beginning to feel vengeful toward the supposedly official culprits, the key players involved in 9/11 were maneuvering in unison behind the scenes to cover all angles of investigation and began building up their damage control infrastructure. The Kenneth Feinberg Group is listed as one of the top 10 supporters of the Jerusalem Institute for Israel Studies for 2004 and 2005. The Jerusalem Institute is an Israel-based Zionist organization that supports the building of the illegal separation wall across Palestine, for example. The Feinberg Group also lists as its clients major insurance and reinsurance companies such as Lloyd's of London. These are the companies who stood to lose billions of dollars if 9/11 victims' lawsuits had gone forward. Feinberg was appointed special master by then Attorney General John Ashcroft. Ashcroft, a dedicated supporter of the Jewish criminal mafia and supporter of such groups as Stand for Israel, is today working as a lobbyist for Israel Aerospace Industries, or IAI, Israel's major military aerospace company, which hired the former U.S. Attorney General to help secure the U.S. government's approval to sell an Israeli weapons system to the South Korean Air Force. Kenneth Feinberg set up the Victims' Compensation Fund. This was a treasure chest of some $7 billion in taxpayer money that would be forked out to the victims of the Israeli 9/11 attack. Since undoubtedly many families lost their primary breadwinner on 9/11, they had a choice between a sizable payout or a long drawn-out investigation with little to no guarantee of success if they chose to pursue legal action against the airlines and the passenger screening security companies. Thus, 97% of eligible victims' families waive their rights to litigate against the government, the airlines, and the security companies responsible for passenger screening at the airports. This prevented any discoveries that could be made via legal battle in the courts for nearly every relative of a victim of 9/11. However, our so-called Israeli allies who masterminded 9/11 weren't satisfied with a 97% cover-up. Enter 2 very dedicated criminal Jews with close ties to the Israeli crime network and judges who very conveniently belong to the same synagogue. Judge Alvin Hellerstein and our new Attorney General, Michael Mukasey. A little background on Hellerstein is necessary here. Judge Hellerstein has a deep and long-standing connection to the Jewish criminal network and close family ties to the State of Israel. Judge Hellerstein's wife is a former senior vice president and current treasurer of a New York-based Jewish organization called AMIT. AMIT promotes Jewish immigration to Israel and stands for Americans for Israel and Torah. AMIT's motto is Building Israel, One Child at a Time. Judge Hellerstein, age 73, is also a longtime member of the Jewish Center of New York and a former president of the Board of Jewish Education of Greater New York. This raises the obvious question about why, in the 9/11 terror case in which an Israeli security company is a key defendant and in which individuals from Israeli military intelligence are suspected of being involved, was Hellerstein chosen to preside over all 9/11 victim lawsuits? And who chose him? Judge Alvin Hellerstein has stated, quote, There is an extraordinary public benefit in having these cases resolved and not allowing through them the wounds of 9/11 suffered by our entire society to keep festering. Hellerstein's mission was to quickly resolve the cases. The rush to case resolution was